That takes us into our action agenda for the evening, starting with action is necessary or appropriate on matters that we covered in executive session. Do we have any motions coming out of executive session?
I'll move that we approve selected employment items per Exhibit A.
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? And the motion carries 6-0.
I also move that, and I apologize, I got to go back to my notes. I move that we approve the contract for renovations, design and renovations to Dutch Fork Elementary School to CPL Architects.
Do I have a second? All those in favor? All opposed? And the motion carries 7-0. Ms. Taylor?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. At the last meeting, we presented the draft board meeting schedule for the 25-26 school year. And upon your comments, we adjusted that draft to accommodate Dr. Herring's request to change the November meeting to November 10th. And then Madam Chair's request that the meetings begin at 6 p.m., the open meetings begin at 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. So those changes have been reflected in tonight's packet, and we can take any questions if you have them.
Mr. Scully?
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and make the motion. I move that we approve the proposed 2025 to 2026 board meeting schedule as presented in Exhibit E.
Do we have a second? Satterfield?
I did have a question I was trying to get in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I just did a little kind of informal survey on my board Facebook page, and about 85% of the respondents in the community suggested 7 p.m. was preferable for working families and parents with kiddos in the district. So just putting that out there. I understand looks like we're set at 6, but hopefully we'll be able to adjust for earlier executive sessions, maybe putting them at the back end of the meeting in those situations.
Absolutely. I also had, I think it probably was sparked because you put a poll out, which is fine, because it opened up discussion around the start time of the meeting. I still feel the same way about starting at 6, mainly because it seems amenable to the staff. But also I talked to Dr. Ross just from feedback, specifically from you kind of about starting executive session on the days that we needed to start earlier. And this is a published schedule, so any changes to it would also have to be published. So if there is an event where, because there's a heavy executive session, if we needed to adjust the schedule to start later, like basically this normal schedule, we could accommodate that so that people aren't expected to be here at 3:30 or even 4 o'clock to start a meeting. Just trying to figure out ways to kind of compromise and meet everybody's needs. Ms. Barnhart.
And I'm just throwing this out there personally because, if we start at 6, we would need to be here at 5. And I do HVAC right now. I'm a single mom because my husband's away in military training. 5 o'clock is kind of a rough time, and I know a lot of people at home too, they like to go ahead and get dinner done and stuff like that. Could we maybe adjust it to even 6:30 or, keep it as is? I would just prefer it to stay the way it is, and I understand it's more accommodating for the staff, and we definitely want to do that, but there's going to be a lot of times that I might not make it here by 5, and other people with children as well, just schedules and practices, and my kids don't get off the bus until 4 sometimes, so.
And so just as a clarification comment, because I also saw public comments about me being insensitive to people with families. Not, I'm talking about public comment. So those people obviously don't know, like, I
You have
also
one as well, yeah.
have 4 children. And so, I think, no matter what time the meetings start, there is, some concessions and some give and some take, on all sides, no matter how this falls. You know, to Jason's point, he wants to start later so he can be home to start, you know, meals and that sort of thing. And sometimes for me, we start later and I still get here right before the meetings and I don't see my family until we get home. And so sometimes starting later for that reason isn't convenient. So I think, obviously, ultimately, it's probably not like a perfect solution, but I do appreciate that we're discussing it, Ms. Huddle.
For me personally, it would be better to start early. So if I was just voting based on my personal preference, I'm lucky, my children are grown. And I do appreciate the staff, but at the end of the day, we're a public body. And that really should be our number one concern. And I've heard from a lot of people that they may not be here in person, but they like to watch the meeting, and they consider 6 o'clock dinner time. And they're getting dinner on the table, and so, and I know they can watch it later. I've said you can go watch the recording, but they like to watch it live. So I don't know, it bothers me that we've had it at 7 o'clock, I think, forever, well before I was on the board. And if we're really wanting the public involved there, then I think we should leave it at 7.
Is there no more, Mr. Satterfield?
Yeah, I understand both sides. I understand if you have young children and ball fields and all that, and parent schedules. And I also understand the staff, they stick around a lot longer, and so it makes their day much longer, and then they've got to figure out how to compensate them. Is there any way we can flex the schedule? I mean, can we try? There's nothing that's set and written in stone or we're chained to a certain time. Maybe we could try it a couple of times and see how it works, how it affects people, or maybe we could look at, think outside the box, get more input from other folks and say, well, maybe the summertime we could start earlier, and that wouldn't put such a burden on a lot of the parents. I mean, just like I say, just come up with a flex schedule. Just try to think outside the box. It wouldn't hurt to try.
I agree with that. I mean, just to try it out for a little while and see. And I like the summer idea as well, because it's a lot easier in the summertime. Maybe just not have it set in stone and just kind of see how we can have the schedule, still, but with the timing of it. See what we can do.
Mrs. Scully? Oh,
I was going to say, I'd like to amend the motion to leave the time of the meeting up to the officers when they set the agenda, between 6 to 7 o'clock. That way you guys can decide if
Depending on what's on the
yeah,
agenda.
depending on what's going on. Is it summertime? Is it Super Bowl? Whatever. But not make the time. The time would be to be decided between 6 and 7 p.m. to be set by the officers.
I feel like that sounds like a good idea in theory.
I need a, okay, I know.
And then until it's not convenient for some, that makes me real anxious because then we're leaving it at the discretion of 3 people. And I get it. Right now, currently, I'm one of those 3 people. I like the idea a little better of however the vote falls on this. I think we can leave some room to be flexible. Sort of like I said about if it's earlier, if we move the meetings to 6, looking at starting them at our regular time, if executive session is heavier, maybe we try it and it doesn't work. It's not, I don't know. It's your motion, we can bring it. I'm just kind of giving some feedback on some of the hazards I see coming.
Well, I didn't get a second anyway, so that's a moot point.
And that might have been my fault because I started talking, so I'm sorry. Mr. Herron is raising his hand, I'm sorry.
Dr. Ross, is there any financial benefit to starting an hour earlier for staffing, those kinds of things?
We would have to run the numbers about man hours. I think for us, to set up for a board meeting does require a lot of staff upkeep. We don't pay overtime. What we do is we do comp time, and we have some of our staff are exempt, some are non-exempt. If you work 40 hours a week, it's too bad. If this meeting ends at 11 o'clock, you're back at work the next day. If you're 37 and a half hours, there are some, I think, fair labor and wage laws that we have to comply by. So what that means is, what we lose is, in that hour, that employee is no longer serving the district that next day or within that cycle of 37 and a half hours. So the longer they are here serving the board meeting, the less they can be in schools or in the district, either the next day or that week. So I don't have the number, but in terms of man hours, that's how it's impacted.
And secondly, would it put any undue pressure on the staff to get the things ready for the board meeting an hour earlier?
I think with us, we just need advance notice to plan. We use a variety of different departments in order to, for those that are here every meeting. Now, what has helped is having a central location where we have our meetings. When our meetings would move around the district, we needed a lot more time. But now that we're in one place, we move less equipment, and so that's been able to help us, but we still use multi-departments. So what they would do at the beginning of the year, once the calendar is set, each of the department heads or the chiefs will meet with their direct reports and say, I need you to block off this date, this date, this date, this time. Security is placed on a rotation. So all of that is scheduled out in advance. If they know the start time is 6, then they can plan for that. They plan their families, their events, and then we find out how to backfill on the end. So with the hour, in short, it gives us more staff time serving schools within that 37 and a half hours.
I think we have 2 more comments, and then I'd like to go ahead and call for the vote. Mrs. Scully and then Ms. Huddle.
Yeah, I know the board meetings, really the purpose of the board meeting is for the board to conduct the district's business. Now, they're held in public, but really it's for our purposes so that we can conduct business. To that end, though, the meetings are available online, both live for streaming and available after they're posted historically, so you can watch them at any point. So starting at an hour early isn't really going to at all impact the number of people who can join or see the meetings at all. Also, other public bodies hold their meetings at 6 o'clock. For example, I believe Richland County Council starts at 6. And other ones even start earlier. I believe there's another group, maybe it's Lexington County, that starts at 4:30. So it's not unprecedented, and it's certainly with precedent to start at 6. And so I think, Mr. Satterfield, I appreciate your attempt at compromising as far as setting a kind of trial period, but I really think we just need to make a decision and stick with it. It's not written into stone. We can always change it if we actually observe or experience a significant problem. We can change at any time. So, but I would say, give it a shot, see how it works out, and we can adjust from there if needed.
Mrs. Huddle? Oh, okay. Mrs. Huddle does not want to make, okay. So at this time, I'm going to call for the vote. All of those in favor of Mr. Scully's motion to approve the proposed 25-26 board meeting schedule? All opposed? All right, and the motion passes 4-3. Thank you, Ms. Taylor.
Thank you.
That takes us to agenda item number 14, Ms. McCaskill.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the locally board-approved course, African American Studies Honors, Exhibit F.
Second.
Good evening. Oops.
Do we have a second? Sorry. I was just ready to go ahead and let you talk, Ms. McCaskill. Go right ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Board. I want to first take a few minutes and just recognize Melanie Sanford as our Social Studies Coordinator for the district, and Kara McMillan is one of our teachers at Dutch Fork High School who has worked diligently on this, as well as Constance Johnson from Irmo High School. She has a child playing sports tonight and cannot be here, and that's totally understandable, but I want to give them just a great thank you because they have worked diligently with making some changes from the fall when we talked about this and going into the framework and really looking at how the local criteria or the local history can be added into this. And Melanie's got just a little bit that she wants to tell you before we move into the rest of the presentation.
So we've now included state and local history in the course, and this is indicated on the course syllabus that you have a copy of. And we have a column that we added that has inclusion of state and local topics. And we also hope to partner with the Irmo Area Oral History Project for some local guest speakers to speak with the students as well.
And so for the African American Studies, we will go through a textbook adoption process. There are two different vendors that are offering books that could be utilized for this. It's going to cost somewhere between $15,000 and $16,000 for that. With the academics budget, I will have to come back to you and ask for, actually probably Ms. Tucker will do this for us, but we'll have to ask for a transfer from where the ESSER funds paid for some software this year, that money is there in software that we could utilize for these textbooks because of ESSER. Next year, we will need that for software purchases, but for this year, we will be able to do that. So I know that on the packet, it does mention the cost of textbooks, but I do believe that the Office of Academics budget can handle that to be able to do that. So we do recommend that you approve the framework, and we're excited for our students that this may encourage them to go deeper into some content that they select, because this is an elective, and they get to select that this is an area that they want to go and learn more about.
Do we have any questions? I don't have a question, but I do think it's interesting that there's local history involved, so I think that'll be kind of a neat offering. Mr. Satterfield?
Well, I was going to say the same thing, Ms. Snipes. I'm excited about that. I read the course description. You all have given a lot of thought to this. I like the challenges that are there for the students. I like that they have to do their own research projects and write argumentative essays. I think that incorporating the community and the history is huge for our students. I think that will be very valuable to them, and it'll be valuable to the community members. So I'm very excited about this, and thank you all for taking so much time. Has there been any attempt to see if the other high schools are interested in this course?
It's in the course catalog. It just those courses have not made at other
Just
high
hasn't made?
schools.
Yeah. Well, I know that y'all have spent a lot of time working on this, so I do appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Were there any other questions or comments, Mr. Bainum?
Yes, I was reading through everything. I didn't see anything in reference to the Edgefield Pottery District and the contributions African Americans made to the economy in South Carolina during the mid-1800s all the way through the early 1900s. I didn't know if that was something maybe like an add-on that you could talk about, because, you know, slave pottery is a really big part of the, you know,
Did you
the
say
State
pottery?
Museum. What's that?
Did you say pottery?
Pottery, yeah.
Oh,
The
good.
State Museum has a display right now with some of Dave Drake's pottery and some other Edgefield potters.
So right behind me, I hear Miss McMillan saying, it's in there, it's in there. So it actually is in there.
We're covering it.
I would though, if you don't mind, we do appreciate the exhibit that you're going to bring to the district. So I sent that to Ms. McCaskill, so I think it's good that we have your resource there. This is huge, and I'm excited to attend as well.
Yeah, and I'll just expound on that just real briefly. A part of the Edgefield Pottery District is Bainham Pottery, and of course, obviously, family members involved in that. But I've been working with partners at the SCDNR to do possibly an exhibit at some of our high schools. They have access to hundreds of Bainham pieces, Edgefield pieces, slave-made pieces as well that we can, maybe put like info boards with, and the students can tie in this curriculum with some actually live pieces. So,
I
working on
heard
that.
another right behind me. Yes. So I think you've got some support there.
Ms. Huddle?
I was also curious, kind of in a similar vein, is there any tie-in to the Rich Lex School that we just voted on the architecture for?
Yes, that is also there.
If we don't have any other questions or comments, I will call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve the African American Studies Honors course? All opposed? And the motion carries 7-0. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.